The legal world is quickly catching up with the world of digital technology. A field usually known more for generating volumes upon volumes of case law is quickly learning to harness the power of the web to run more efficiently and bring law into the 21st century.
The interaction of the law with the digital production of information is just at its infancy. It's going, but it's at its infancy. Court filings are now moving rapidly in this direction. One of the pressures is the economic pressure from the reduction in state budgets with the downturn, all of that kind of thing, are now forcing courts to rethink what they're about.
As the practice of law evolves, courts and firms are finding that a new generation of attorneys is needed with digital skills to match their legal skills. This past spring, students at Vermont Law School in the small town of South Royalton, Vermont, signed up for a digital drafting course, one of the first of its kind, learning the skills to stay ahead of the curve.
What we're really looking at in this class is what happens when you transform a legal practice and the way in which people deliver legal services into web or other digital platforms, into ways that integrate law, the substance of law, into the technology.
Oliver Goodenough leads the digital drafting course offered at Vermont Law School in partnership with the Berkman Center for Internet and Society, a research center at Harvard University. He says that some automation in the law is inevitable. The question is what that automation might look like. In one scenario, a client might be able to do most of the heavy lifting by filling out a questionnaire-like form before they even speak to a lawyer.
You'd pull up the template, it would ask you a set of questions about who the parties are, what kind of court, what kind of suit, and then after the questions were answered, push the button and a reasonably finished document for filing in the court would appear, having been put together from the template by the computer.
Expert systems, or systems engineered to give legal advice, are an example of some of the more sophisticated projects Oliver's class is working on.
These are systems that we can use to program question and answers, advice-giving systems, sorting systems where clients who would come in or potential clients can pre-clear themselves against certain kinds of advice.
New technologies have a number of other benefits besides just saving money. They can also bring the law within the reach of the average citizen. Jeannie Ikes co-teaches the course with Oliver.
It's not easy for a layperson to access that information. Being able to create a contract or a divorce decree or agreement, I mean, allowing people to go in and do this themselves, it empowers them.
And there's also the issue of access to justice. Currently, over 50% of low-income Americans who seek legal aid are turned away. And 80% of those low-income Americans with legitimate legal issue seek no help at all. These can be in cases covering everything from housing and foreclosure to consumer issues to issues of domestic violence. Making the law cheaper and easier to access is something that inspires students of the class.
Most people in America that want to have access to the legal system don't, and it's usually because of cost. So if we can bring down the cost of providing legal service to people, we'll increase access and hopefully people will be happier.
While some of these benefits may be a few years off, students in Vermont's digital drafting class are already seeing the rewards. One student in the class scored a coveted summer position with the help of his new digital drafting skills.
I was really worried coming into my third year and thinking about what I was going to do after law school for a while. And then I go to a job interview and I realized that because I had taken this class, they're more interested in hiring me.
But could these soon-to-be lawyers possibly be putting themselves out of a job by creating an army of robot paralegals? Richard Susskind, author of the book The End of Lawyers, suggests that in the future, lawyers will be much less prominent in society than today, and in some walks of life will have no visibility at all. Oliver agrees, but reminds his students that most clients will still want the option to speak with a live human being.
Is this going to do away with being with lawyers? No. And indeed, we've recommended to the students that they put a little button on the side saying, if you need to speak to a lawyer, push this button.
Ultimately, the students who learn these new skills will be the most likely to benefit.
Who, when they go in and say, oh, by the way, and I do know how to do document assembly, the older lawyers go, you do? Oh, that's interesting. I don't know. Could you help us? Could you help us automate this process or that process? And if the answer is yes, that person can get a job.
You can find out more information on these programs by visiting www.vermontlaw.edu.